Can we start with our meeting now?
Yes, Chairperson, we can start with our meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Coordinator. Thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable members of our Portfolio Committee of Oversight Mechanism, Office of the Limpopo Legislature led by the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, Accounting Officer and his team, our committed officials led by Mr. Ghana as our coordinator, our researchers, Office of the Auditor General. Good morning. May peace be unto you. Honorable members, we gathered here today, the 28th April 2021, after celebrating our 27 years of freedom as South Africans yesterday, the 27th April 2021. Honorable members, the main aim of this meeting is to get briefing by the Legislature on 2019-2020 financial year annual report, 2021-2022 financial year APP and budget, implementations of the committee resolutions, and we are also going to get the remarks by the Office of the Auditor General. Honorable members, by so saying and giving the objectives of this meeting, you are more welcome, and we encourage full participation from all of us in this meeting. I thank you. Honorable members, can we have the agenda, Mr. Gunn? Can you flag the agenda on the screen? Thank you very much. We are now on item number 2, introduction and apologies. That will be done by our coordinator, Mr. Ghana. Mr. Ghana.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members, support staff from the Legislature. Before I can render the item, Chairperson, allow me to inform the members of the committee and the support staff from the Legislature that this meeting is being recorded and that we are live on YouTube. Secondly, that in our meeting today, dated the 28th April 2021, we have the following honorable members of the committee: Honorable Phala KS, Honorable Monama GR, Honorable Kekana N, Honorable Mokaba Pukwana N, Honorable Radzilani F, and we have the support staff as follows: Dr. Hlanganani Nyatela, Ms. Masemola Emily, Mr. More S from the communication, and we are also joined by the IT support, Me Matebula S and Ms. Makubele V. Also, we have the AG represented by Ms. Karine Crovier. Honorable Chair, I want to register an apology of Mr. Dibeile. We had him in the first session. Now he has left for other commitments. Through you, Chair, I want to request the Secretary of the Legislature, Mr. Mutwa S, to introduce his team and their designation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ghana, our coordinator. Mr. Mutwa, can you please introduce your team.
Now, thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to members of this committee and staff of the legislature. Chair, as part of the team, it's myself. We also have the CFO Mepatudi. We have Mema Suvi from committees. We have Ndatema Sehela from research. Mema Locha from legal, Ndatema Komane from finance, from HR we have Ndatema Shirwana, Dr. Nkuna and Makado from Office of the Speaker and Office of the Secretary respectively. Those are officials that we have, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our accounting officer, Mtate Mutwa.
Chair?
Thank you very much for introducing your team. Mr. Ghana?
Yes, I want to register two apologies from the members of the committee. That is Honorable Moshala, he's on study leave, and Honorable Siono R. She has family commitments. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Ghana. Their apologies are accepted. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for introducing members and the legislature team and also AG's team. Now we'll move to item number 3, briefing by Limpopo Legislature on the following items. 3.1 is 2019-2020 financial year annual report. 3.2, 2021-2022 APPN budget. Then the third item will be 3.3, which is the implementation of the committee resolutions. We are going to allow the legislature to give us the 3 reports. Then later, we'll come up with questions and clarifications. We will request our honorable members to note everything from the 3 reports, and then we will engage around the report. Thank you, Legislature. Can you present the first report?
Yes, Chairperson, thank you so much. But I'd like to get some clarity. I was under the impression that we're going to deal with the annual report and the APP, and the third one being, I'm not sure about the third one, but I was under the impression that we're going to deal with the annual report and the annual performance plan. But I'll start with the annual report. Yes, thanks.
The third one is the implementation of the committee resolutions.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. No, Chair. Thanks.
Yes. You may proceed.
All right, thank you. Chair, as we always say, in the legislature, we have 3 programs. That is administration, political party support, and parliamentary services. Now, with the administration, it's where you get your auxiliary services mainly, starting from Office of the Speaker, Office of the Secretary, Finance, and many others, and then you go on like that. Let me start with the first sub-program of the program administration. The strategic objective of this sub-program is to provide political leadership and financial oversight to the legislature. This is Office of the Speaker. Now, in terms of their indicators, they have the sittings, which are presided over by the Speaker, Programming Committee, and the Internal Arrangements Committee, which are some of the committees that are doing work on behalf of the Speakership. In terms of the sittings, the target for the year under review was 30. However, we had as the actual output 22 sittings there. And we are saying mainly this is the sittings of the legislature are dependent on the business to be transacted and the availability of business to be processed and the program of the legislature as such. Now, in terms of the programming committee, the target was to have 30. We ended up with 12 meetings, and then internal arrangements is 4. The target was accordingly achieved, and on IFS and AFS reports, the target has been accordingly achieved. I may not necessarily go into that. Going down, it's the Office of the Secretary. On the strategic objective there is to provide strategic direction and administrative support to the legislature. And as indicators, we have the development of strategy document and the review of with regard to the first indicator, the targets have been accordingly achieved. And then with regard to the development and review of administrative policies, the target has been exceeded there. The target was 4. The actual output was 9, but it is dependent on the gaps identified in terms of policies that may need to be developed or reviewed by the section. So that's the reason why we have that. In terms of risk management and management meetings, the targets have been accordingly achieved. Under financial management as the third sub-program of this program, Chair, we have as the strategic objective there to provide effective financial management to the legislature. They have, as sub-programs, we have development of MTF budget, in monitoring produced, inventory, and stock taking asset verifications. Chair, under this sub-program, all targets have been accordingly achieved. With regard to fleet management as the other sub-program of the program, the strategic objective is to provide freight and logistics services to the legislature. This is where we provide transport to legislators and staff of the legislature, and also logistical services where necessary during events of the legislature. As an indicator there, we have purchases of vehicles. The target has been accordingly achieved, and then we also have maintenance of vehicles. So on this one, there are no major challenges. The other sub-program, Honorable Chairperson, is the human resource management. And a strategic objective there, we have provide effective human resource management to the legislature. And this sub-program has a number of indicators there. The first one being the filling of positions, number of employees trained, bursaries awarded, interns, collective agreements, because this is part of the mandate of this section. Now, in terms of the filling of posts, we have as the target there 10 posts. In terms of the actual, we ended up with 20. But here, Chair, I think it must be noted as well that the number includes then the vacated positions that are filled. So it's not necessarily new positions per se. Training of employees, we have 96 as opposed to 80 that was targeted. And the bursaries, we have 55. Interns, we have 2 instead of 8. This is determined largely by the needs of sections and the availability of funds for each year. So we will differ in terms of the financial years because of the funds and also the needs of the legislature. Yes, the target was achieved accordingly there. In terms of policies, the target was 8. However, we ended up with 6 policy workshops conducted by the section. So this is also a reactive exercise, which is largely dependent on the request received by sections and divisions. So this is a reactive, like I said, a reactive action from activity from the section. Moving forward, we have communications there, and The strategic objective is to establish and maintain effective, efficient communication for the legislature. If you look at their indicators there, they have publicizing of events, a number of radio slots and interviews were arranged by this section, and a number of TV slots, mainly during SOPA. All targets were accordingly achieved for this particular section. If you go to IT's strategic objective is to provide secure and effective ICT support services to the legislature, and they have as indicators the number of financial and communication management systems reports produced by the section, and then security systems maintenance reports produced by the section, and you go down with the indicators. I must say that they have achieved all their targets, because basically, if you look at them, there is no room for deviation in this one. So that is why it is important to ensure that we achieve our targets there. If you look at the systems maintenance security issues there, so it's very critical that we achieve our targets accordingly. Thank you, Chair. In terms of internal audit, the strategic objective is to ensure sound internal control systems. They have two indicators there: number of audit reports, internal audit reports produced, and the number of audit committee meetings arranged. The targets have been accordingly achieved. It's 6 audit reports, and in fact, we have one extra meeting that we had. I think it was to deal with, I can't remember, but I think they had one extra meeting that we had for the audit committee. So the target has been exceeded in that regard. Member safety is another sub-program under administration. The strategic objective is to provide safety and security and ceremonial services to the legislature. They have 2 indicators there: number of reports on sergeant at arms rendered in the House, and a number of security systems maintenance. On the first indicator, the target was accordingly achieved. And on the second one, the actual output says none. I think the committee was briefed that for the better part of this of the financial year under review, staff of the legislature had vacated their offices to occupy some offices provided by public works for the renovation purposes. That is why there is nothing in terms of the security systems maintenance there. The second sub-program of the legislature is the facilities for members and political parties. Under this, we have 2 sub-programs: political party support and parliamentary exchange and protocol. Under political party support, we have the strategic objective to provide administrative and financial support services to political parties. The first indicator has to do with the transfer of funds allocated to political parties, and the second one has to do with the training of staff of political parties represented in the legislature. With regard to the first indicator, the actual output was 99.2. With regard to training, there was none organized in the year under review, and this is also dependent on the request received by political parties for their staff to be trained on particular areas of their choice. So there was none arranged for this financial year. The other one, Chair, has to do with the number of political party trips. The target was to have 55, and the actual output was 64 political party trips. These are also dependent on requests that we receive from political parties for their members to travel for party engagements. The second sub-program, as I said, has to do with parliamentary exchange and protocol. The strategic objective here is to render protocol services and coordinate parliamentary exchange programs for the legislature. And as indicators, they have 2 there. One is a number of international engagements coordinated. The second one is about the CPA activities. The targets have been accordingly achieved. Yeah, the targets have been accordingly achieved. And the last program of the legislature is the parliamentary services, the one that we regard as the core business of the legislature. The first sub-program there is library and records management. The strategic objective, the quality of information and registry services provided. In terms of the first indicator, the target was to have 50 books purchased, but the actual output was 32. I must say that this is dependent on the user needs of this library. If we target 50 and then the needs maybe are below 50, then basically we end up with that figure as the actual output. Here we ended up with 32. The other indicator was accordingly achieved. And then the second sub-program of program 3 is research services. The strategic objective here is to provide quality research services to the legislature. And as indicators, they have the number of proactive research reports produced, number of departmental and public entities, APPs, and strategic documents analyzed, number of legislation analyzed. In terms of the first indicator, the target was to have 30, and then it was exceeded. We ended up with 77 research reports. The second indicator there has to do with the analysis of strategic documents of the department and public entities. The annual target was to have 120 research reports, and then the actual output was 180. The target was also exceeded in this regard. In terms of the legislation analyzed, the target was to have 4 bills. However, in terms of the actual output, we ended up having 1. This is also a reactive exercise, Chair, because it's dependent on the request that the section receives in terms of the analysis of the bills. The other sub-program there is House proceedings, and the strategic objective is to provide procedural and administrative services to the legislature or the House. And as indicators is number of sittings organized, number of legislation facilitated, number of ceremonial functions coordinated. In terms of the first indicator, the actual output is the same as that of the Office of the Speaker. We ended up with 22 sittings, and I think I've tried to explain why that is the position. And in terms of the legislation facilitated, the target was 12. We ended up with 6. And then in terms of the ceremonial functions, it was accordingly achieved. NCOP liaison services. The strategic objective here is to facilitate and coordinate NCOP activities. And the indicators, we have number of NCOP legislation facilitated, number of NCOP events coordinated, number of NCOP plenary and joint sittings of parliaments attended by members of the legislature. The first indicator there, we targeted to have 8 bills. We ended up with 11. This is also a reactive exercise because it is dependent on the bills that we receive from time to time from the National Council of Provinces. And in terms of the events, we planned to have 4, but we ended up with 2. In terms of the plenary sessions, they are also determined by the National Council of Provinces. We targeted to have 16 for the financial year. However, we ended up with 22 plenary sessions attended by members of the legislature. Committees is the other sub-program of this program. The strategic objective here is to facilitate oversight and lawmaking processes. They have as their indicators: 1, the number of committee meetings organized, the number of site visits facilitated, the number of legislation facilitated, the number of oversight reports facilitated, and also the workshops. In terms of the first indicator, it was exceeded. In terms of meetings, the target was to have 73, but we ended up with 82. This is dependent on the program of the legislature and the work available for committees to process. The second one, it's a worrying one, this one, because site visits are a very important aspect of oversight. So the target was to have 6, but the actual output was 1. But this is determined by the programs of committees themselves. But I must say that I think there is room for improvement in this one, because it's worrying that we have this number for site visits. Number of legislation, 12 bills, and then we ended up with 6. Oversight reports facilitated. The target was to have 100. However, we ended up with 65, and this is also dependent on the work produced by committees, informed by the oversight work that has been conducted by those committees. Number of workshops, the target was to have 7. We ended up with 4 reports. This is also informed by the training needs and the budget available for us to have a workshop for members. SCOPA hearings, the target was to, I think it was accordingly achieved there. The other sub-program there is legal services. In terms of their strategic objective is to provide advisory legal services to the legislature. And as indicators, they have number of contracts drafted and a number of legal opinions compiled. In terms of the first indicator, the target was to have 12. However, it was considerably exceeded because we ended up with 35 contracts. This is informed by the number of requests that they received from sections in terms of the drafting of contracts. Legal opinion, the target was to have 12. We ended up with 1. This is also a reactive exercise because it's dependent on the request for legal opinion that they receive. So that is what actually that's an explanation to the variance there. Public participation and petition is another sub-program of the parliamentary services. As the strategic objective, they have to promote public involvement and education in the legislative processes. As indicators, they have number of educational workshops conducted, number of sectoral parliaments organized, number of public hearings organized, and a number of petitions received and processed. With regard to the first indicator, in terms of the workshops, the target was to have 8. We ended up with 4 workshops. The sectoral parliaments were accordingly achieved. Number of public hearings. Here, the target was to have 10. We ended up with 4. It's dependent on the program of the legislature and the work of committees that necessitate public hearing. So this is what explains actually the reason for this variance. Number of petitions, I think it was accordingly achieved. Hansard and language services. The strategic objective of this program is to provide Hansard and language services to the House. As indicators there, we have these 2. That is number of Hansard reports and volume produced, number of House sittings, House sitting minutes translated. That's translation of minutes. With regard to the first indicator, I think it will be the same as the issue of sittings. It's 22 instead of 30. And this is dependent on the number of House sittings that the legislature has held in the particular session. With regard to the House sitting minutes, they have 20, and this is also dependent on the minutes that they receive from procedural services for them to translate into various languages. Yeah, Honorable Chairperson, the other parts actually, it's more of descriptions to this, but in terms of program performance, this is what I've already presented. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Accounting Officer Ntate Mutwa. Thanks very much for the presentation of 2019-2020 financial year annual report. Then you may proceed to 2021-2022 financial year APP and budget. Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. With regard to the APP, maybe I must first explain how it is packaged, Chair. I will not necessarily go through the other parts of the document because basically it's information that is contained in the strategic plan, which we've already done, dealt with that. So information relating to the strategic plan, I will not necessarily go into that. I will zoom into...
Mr. Muto, can you please flag your report on the screen? Can you manage to flag your report on the screen?
I'm not sure if IT and the Secretariat, I think have not. I'm not sure if they have not received the document. But personally, Chair,
can they assist you?
Yeah, maybe if they can, we can just pause a little bit so that they can do that.
That's correct. Because some of the people don't have the report, but if you can flag it on the screen.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, yeah, it's fine, Chair. It's fine.
Sure.
Chair, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Go up. Mr. Muta, do you see the screen? Accounting officer? Hello, Mr. Muta.
Yes. Hello.
Do you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Chair, but for the purpose of this exercise, let me use my own report that I have, but members will look at what is available on the screen there, and the IT will assist them to take them through whatever we shall be presenting.
No, you are more welcome.
Thanks. As I said, I will not go through information that is available, that is reflected in the annual report, that is the annual targets of various financial years. So that it is part of the APP, but I would like to zoom into the quarterly targets for the current financial year, the annual and quarterly targets. For that purpose, Honorable Chairperson, maybe we through you the IT section there. Let's go to page 18. Page 18.
IT people, can you assist?
Let's go to page 18 of the...
Chairperson.
Hello.
Chairperson, I think we need to clarify the responsibility here. Is it the IT or the committee coordinator who must project the report? Because I do not have the report that the secretary is reading, unless if it's reading from the APP. Yes, I have the APP, then I can project the one. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Muta, are you on 2021-2022 APPN budget?
Correct, Chair.
Do you have it, coordinate?
Yes, I have it.
Okay. So we are on the same book. Can you please project it on the screen?
Chairperson, I've projected it. I'm not sure if you can see it.
Yes, we do.
Page 20.
Go to page 18.
Page 18.
Page 18. My apology.
Thank you, Mr. Ghana. That's correct. Proceed, Mr. Mut.
Chair, in terms of the, as I explained, I think when I was dealing with the annual report, we have 3 programs of the legislature. That is administration, party political support, and members' benefits. And the last one being parliamentary services. With regard to the first sub-program is Office of the Speaker, followed by Office of the Secretary and Financial Management. With regard to the Office of the Speaker, the number of sittings, the target for the current financial year is to have 22 sittings, and they are spread across, as in the first quarter, 10 sittings in the second quarter, 5 in the third and the fourth quarter, respectively. With regard to the number of programming committee meetings, the annual target there is 15, 3 in the first quarter, 5 in the second quarter, 4 in the third, and 3 in the fourth quarter. Internal arrangements is another indicator there. We're targeting to have 4 meetings, 1 per quarter, that is 1 in the first, second, third, and fourth. The in-year monitoring reports, this is what we produce on a quarterly basis. We are planning to have 12 in-year monitoring reports, which are spread into 3 per quarter. Okay, moving forward. Yes. The Speaker, and let me go to Office of the Secretary. Yes. The Office of the Secretary there we have as a strategic in terms of the targets there. One is the number of strategic documents reviewed and developed. We are planning to have 4 reports, 4 quarterly reports, that is 1 per quarter, and the annual report, which is done in the second quarter, usually. The other one is to do with the administrative policies. The plan is to have 4 policies, 1 in each quarter. Risk management, the plan is to have 1 risk assessment report and 3 implementation reports, which are spread into 1 per quarter. In terms of management meetings, we are planning to have 8. And then in terms of the quarterly spread, we have 2 in each quarter. Financial management is the other sub-program there. As indicators, we have the number of MTEF budget reports. In terms of the annual target is to have 3. The first draft in the second quarter, the second draft in the third, and the final report in the fourth quarter. This section is also charged with the responsibility of producing in-year monitoring reports, and we're targeting to have 3 in each quarter. Inventory and stock taking and asset verification reports. The target is to have 4 inventory stock taking and 2 asset verification reports, and they are spread into 1 per quarter. The other sub-program there is fleet management. As indicators there, they have number of vehicles purchased and maintained. For this financial year, the target is to purchase 5 vehicles, and the target there is to have them purchased in the third quarter of the financial year, all 5 of them. The other part of this indicator is to maintain this vehicle. We are planning to maintain 35 that we have, 30 plus the 5. Actually, it's 35 that we currently have, sorry. Number of events where transport and logistical services is provided. The target is to have 4, 1 in each quarter. I must say that this is a reactive exercise for the section because it is dependent on the events that are organized by other sections like your public participation and your committees. The HR as a sub-program, they have as indicators there, the filling of posts, training of employees, bursaries, awarding of bursaries, interns, and collective agreements entered into or completed. In terms of posts, the target is to have 10, 5 in the first quarter and 5 in the second quarter. In terms of the training of employees, the target is to have 50, and they're spread across the quarters as 10 in the first, 20 in the second, 10 in other two last quarters of the financial year. Number of bursaries awarded, the plan is to have 41 bursaries. Interns for the current financial year, the target is to have 8. The target is to have 8 interns as we normally do in terms of the planning for the current financial year. Collective agreement, we always have 1. The target is to have that 1 collective agreement, and then workshop for policies, because this section is also charged with the responsibility of providing training and workshops on policies for other section or staff of the legislature. In terms of the target there, the target is to have 4 and then 1 workshop in each quarter, and they are spread according to the quarters like that. Wellness sessions, the target is to have 1 wellness program, and the target is to have it in the 3rd quarter of the financial year. Communication is the other sub-program, and they have as indicators the number of publicized events. Second one is the number of radio slots, interviews, and a number of TV slots. In terms of the events, the target is to have 5, and then they are spread accordingly as 1, 1, 1, and then 2 in the 4th quarter. This is where the state of the province is also held. So yeah, number of radio slots, the target is to have 5, and then they are spread into 1, 1, and then 2 in the final quarter, which is the 4th quarter. Number of TV slots, this is solely about the state of the province address, which is only on the 4th quarter as reflected there. On IT, we have a number of financial and communication management systems report, number of security systems maintenance reports, ICT and software maintenance. The target is on the first indicator there is to have 4 systems maintenance reports, and they're spread into 1 in each quarter. The same goes to security systems maintenance is 4 at the annual target, and then they are spread into 1 per quarter. The software and hardware maintenance is 4. That is the financial year annual target. Then they are spread into 1 according to the quarters. Internal audit, we have as the indicator the number of internal audit reports and committee meetings. The target there is to have 6 audit reports and 4 committee meetings. In terms of audit reports, it's 1, which is processed the first quarter, and then the meetings there you have 2 in the second, 2 in the third, and 1 in the final quarter of the financial year. Member safety is the other sub-program. They have as indicators the number of reports on targeted arms services rendered in the house, and the second one relates to the security maintenance. In terms of the current target, the target for the annual target, we have 4 sittings reports, 1 in each quarter. And in terms of maintenance reports, it's 4. They are spread into 1 across the quarters. And then for program 2, we can go to page 25. The annual targets and quarterly targets for program 2. We can start at page 25. That is political party support services, or political party support services. As the indicator there, we have the percentage of funds allocated and transferred to political parties. The annual target is to transfer 100% of political party funds to all parties represented in the House. In the first quarter, we target to have 25% transferred, and then the other tranche will be transferred in the second quarter. The number of training sessions organized for officials for parties represented in the House, we're planning to have 2 sessions, 1 in the second quarter and 1 in the final quarter of the financial year. Number of party trips, the target is to have 55. Chair, this is an estimation basically because it is dependent on the request that we receive from political parties, and it's mainly informed by the output over the years in the past. So the plan is to have 15 in the first quarter, 15 in the second. The third quarter is not that much of a busy quarter, it's 10, and then 15 in the fourth quarter. The parliamentary exchange and protocol services. We have as indicators there the number of international engagements coordinated and the number of administered CPA activities. In terms of the first indicator, the target is to have 2, and they're in the second quarter. The CPA events, its target is to have 4, 2 in the second quarter, 1 in the third, and 4 in the fourth quarter, 1 as well. Chair, this is also dependent on what happens, with the current situation that is COVID, because for now, I think all legislatures are not yet traveling to outside the country. So yeah, this is dependent on the achievement of this is dependent on the developments countrywide and maybe globally as well. Yes, those are the only 2 sub-programs of Program 2. Now, Program 3, which is parliamentary services, we can go to page 31. Page 31. Yes, we start there with library and records management. The first indicator there is the number of library materials purchased. Mainly here we're talking about books that the section has to buy. Usually this is done in the third and fourth quarters. So they've targeted to split it into 25 in the third and 25 in the fourth quarter of the financial year. And then in terms of the second indicator there, it's files, number of files and of records issued and received. The target is to have 4 and then 1 in each of the quarters of the financial year. In terms of research services as the other sub-program of parliamentary services, as the first indicator there, we have the number of proactive research report produced. And then the target is to have 30, the annual target. As the first and second quarter targets, we have 10, 10, third and fourth quarters, it's 5 in each quarter. Number of departmental and public entities, APPs and strategic documents analyzed. The annual target is 120 and they are spread into 30 per quarter. Number of legislation analyzed. This is also an estimation based on the practice because it's largely a reactive exercise. So the target is to have 4 bills and they are spread into 1 per quarter. House proceedings as the other sub-program of the program parliamentary services. We have the number of House sittings organized. This is also, I think, informed by the target that we have in the Office of the Speaker. That is the annual target of 22. 2 sitting in the first, 10, 5 in the third and fourth quarter of the financial year. Number of legislation facilitated. This section, because it is the one charged with the responsibility of facilitating legislation. The target is to have 12 bills and 3 per quarter, according to all the quarters of the financial year. Ceremonial functions coordinated. This relates to the State of the Province address. This is only done in the 4th quarter of the financial year. National Council of Provinces Liaison Services. As the sub-program there, we have the number of NCOP legislation facilitated. The annual target there is 8 bills. In terms of the quarterly targets, we have 2 in each quarter. This is also a reactive exercise, Honorable Chairperson, because it is dependent largely on the bills that we receive from the National Council of Provinces. Number of NCOP events, we're planning to have 4, 1 in each quarter. This is also not dependent by us internally here. It's dependent on the program of the National Council of Provinces. Same goes to the plenary sessions where we send members. The target is to have 16, 4 in the first, 6 in the second, 3 in the last 2 quarters of the financial year. Committee services is the other sub-program of the program parliamentary services. The first indicator there has to do with the number of committee meetings organized. As the annual target, we're planning to have 104 meetings. And then the quarterly target, we have 30 in the first, 30 in the second, 22 in the 3rd and 4th quarters of the financial year. As the year goes towards the end, the financial year, the meetings drops in terms of what we usually experience. The number of site visits facilitated, the plan is to have 6. 2 visits in the first quarter, 2 in the second, none in the third, and then 2 in the 4th quarter. Number of legislation facilitated is 12 bills, which is the same as what you have in the House proceedings, and they're spread into 3 per quarter. Number of oversight reports facilitated, the plan is to have 100 in the financial year, which is the quarterly target. They're spread into 4 in the first quarter, 26 in the second, 36 and 34 in the 4th quarter. Number of SCOPA public hearings, the target is to have 17, and all of them are targeted to take place in the 3rd quarter of the financial year. Legal services is the other sub-program. They have 2 indicators. One is the drafting of contracts and also a compilation of legal opinions for legislators and the legislature in general. The annual target for contract is 12, 3 per quarter. The same goes to legal opinion. And I must say, as I think it was clear even in the annual report, this is largely a reactive exercise. It's dependent on the request received by this section for them to either draft contracts or compile legal opinions, whether for the administration or the political side of the legislature. Public participation and petitions is this other sub-program of the program parliamentary services. The first indicator there has to do with a number of educational workshops conducted. We are planning to have 3 workshops in the current financial year, 2 in the 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter of the financial year. The second one is sectoral parliaments. Sectoral parliaments, I must say, in the last about 2 financial years, it has dropped quite considerably, informed by the current realities, because we are limited to virtual sessions. So the target is to have 2 sectoral parliaments, 1 in the 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter of the financial year. Number of public hearings, the plan is to have 3, 1 in the first, 2 and 1 in the 3rd and 1 in the 4th quarter accordingly. Number of petitions received and processed, we have 24 petitions, and they're spread into 1, 8, 5, 10 as per the quarterly arrangements there. Hansard and language services, the indicators there, we have number of reports and volumes produced. As the annual target, they're planning to have 22 reports and 1 volume of Hansard produced. The first quarter is to have 2 reports, 10 reports in the second, 5 reports in the third, and then 5 in the fourth, and that 1 volume of Hansard to be produced in the fourth quarter. Number of House minutes, it's also dependent on the number of sittings that we have. 2 in the first, 10 in the second, 5 in the other last 2 quarters of the financial year. Chairperson, this reflects the targets as per what you have in the AP, and these are also targets of various sub-programs and programs of the legislature. I think the CFO can speak briefly on the budget allocation for the current financial year through you, Chair, if you agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Accounting Officer, for the presentation of the reports. Before we give the CFO an opportunity, we do have a request from the Office of the AG, whereby Mrs. Karen Krove requests to be released at 11:50. So she requests us to give her a chance to give remarks. Hello, Honorable Khan.
Yeah, before the AG comes in, let's allow the CFO to give us a presentation. Thereafter, we'll allow the AG to come in.
Okay, I think she yes, because it's now 10:57. I don't know that the CFO is going to be long or not, but let's give him the CFO an opportunity to speak, knowing that by 11:15, the AG's office will be leaving us, but we must give them a slot. Are we together?
Yes. Yes, Chair.
CFO.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson, members, and colleagues. Chair, I'm not going to be long. I'm just going to take you through the budget as highlighted in the APP on page 9, from page 9 of the APP. I just want to highlight to the committee that for the financial year 2021-2022, the legislature has been allocated an amount of 395,479,000, which is on page 9 of the APP. This budget is broken down as we go to page 10 to cater for our compensation of employees at 209,206,000, for goods and services at 52,021,000, for transfer payments at 126,252,000, and for capital assets at 8 million. So that brings us to the total of 395,479,000. But Chair, I want to highlight a few things on the budget. Number one on the budget is that the budget has been cut for 2021-2022 financial year. Our budget has been drastically cut. As we can see there on page 10, on where it says compensation of employees, that for 2021-2022, the amount is ring-fenced at 209,206,000. If you compare it to the previous year, you see that we were at 236,922. So obviously on that one, we are seriously cut in the current financial year, and we are seriously constrained in the budget on that one. And then if we look at our goods and services, when the secretary presented, he said most of the legislatures were doing virtual work virtually in the prior financial year, and most of them are still doing work virtually in the current financial year. if the legislatures have to go back to the normal operations of non-virtual, the amount highlighted there on page 10 under goods and services, which is 52 million and 21, that amount will also be very little for us to be able to finish the financial year. As we can see in the previous financial years, the normal financial years where there was no virtual operations, we were on that item, we were spending around 77 million, 71 million. So that 52 million, if we go back to normal operations, it will be too shortfall for us. I must just also highlight that under transfer payments, there's an amount of 44 million that was ring-fenced under that amount, which says 125 million. Within that 125 million, there are amounts which was ring-fenced at 44 million for political party transfers. As we know that that amount, or that the new act has now taken effect, and we are still discussing at the sector level as to how are we going to deal with that new legislative prescript. Chair, I think let me just stop there to briefly brief the committee on this one. I think I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, CFO, for giving us the total budget for 2021-2022. We thank you so much. Honorable members, as I've already indicated that the Office of the AG request to be released at 11 hours 15 minutes. Can we give them an opportunity to make some remarks before we can go to the questions and clarifications item? Honorable members?
Yes, Chair, I support your proposal.
Oh, thank you so much, Honorable Pala. Office of the AG, Mrs. Karen Groove, can you please make the remarks so that you can be released?
Thank you, Chairperson. And once again, good morning to members and also to my colleagues in the Legislature. According to the agenda, the AG's office is required to make a couple of remarks, and following on the briefing that Mr. Dibela did this morning, I just want to also commend the Legislature for obtaining a clean audit outcome, and also to take note of the IT systems. There was a new one, and there were some hiccups with that, but I'm sure going into the next financial year, those issues will be resolved. And then also to take note of the internal audit's findings and to implement those during the year. And then also the good practices that the Legislature has, and that is to keep on reviewing the annual financial statements and the annual performance report, like they've been doing, to ensure that the quality financial statements and performance information is submitted to audit. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, AG's office. Thank you so much for your remarks. On behalf of the Portfolio Committee, let me take this opportunity to pass my words of gratitude to the Office of the Auditor General. We thank you so much, Mrs. Karen, and also Mr. Dibela. We thank you very much for coming. You are now released to go and attend to other commitments that you are having.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable members, we are now on questions and clarifications from the reports that was presented by the accounting officer, Mr. Mutwa, for the legislature. We will now come up with the questions and clarifications or comments. Honorable Munama.
Yeah, thanks very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members. Firstly, let me take this opportunity to welcome the presentation from our officials from the legislature. Well, also just to applaud them for obtaining a clean audit. I think that's one thing that we wanted to put across to them to say, keep it up. But I think, Chair, there are areas that, as much as we commend them on that particular aspect, also, I think the major challenge that that you are facing is how do we then maintain the status quo rather than to regress. I see that you have made a mention that you have sound internal control measures, but I think let's strike a balance in terms of how the AG has raised some pertinent issues that you have to deal with them so that you don't get qualified and regress. And I wanted them just to share with us how I see that they wanted to feel about 1030 post for on an MTEF period. I wanted to know how is their COE, because it's not explicitly stated here. Where are those positioned in the organizational structure or in the organogram? Because all departments and all organs of states have been required to cut on the COEs, and maybe they have a plan. That plan must be adequately articulated. And the other thing, Chair, I see that we are approving the budget at the Moto, but when we were inaugurated or later, we were told that in terms of the tools of trade, will be given some your IT equipments like your cell phones, your iPad, and the MacBook, which will take 2 years. I don't know whether the budget is addressing that so that members should benefit out of that. That's one other issue. One of the issues that I think you need to articulate for honorable members, because this is the portfolio committee that I think must be in a position to explain some challenges. The Political Party Funding Act and the rollout thereof. Whether there is a budget of 44 million, what is it that you are going to do with that? And what is the expectation of the members? How do we define it vis-a-vis the role of the IEC in the whole arrangement? And I think those are the areas that I think they have to address them. And we just wanted to applaud them, because if people are working, we need not to dampen their spirit, and more especially that the AG, I think, also has stated that they are working very hard to ensure that we have a clean governance. But I think the support to members also is very key. If perhaps also you can improve in terms of the research, for capacitation of the members, so that that's one area for oversight. And IT to some extent. I think those are some of the areas that I think we need more improvements. That's my comment and my overarching observation. But I think thanks very much for the good work that you are doing. Let me pause there, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Munama. Do we have other hands?
Yes, Chair.
Honorable Phala.
Thanks, Chairperson, and I welcome the presentations that we had. I'd also like to applaud the legislature on getting a clean audit. And I think as a committee, we must really commend them alongside our IT group, especially for the past year. We're able to still continue with our work and virtual sittings and meetings, despite the challenges that we had as a legislature, as members. We were really able to hold the executive accountable through the staff from the legislature, from the IT. I am still new in this committee, and the secretary will forgive me if I'm offside. I'm still finding my feet in the committee. However, in the annual report, Honorable Chairperson, they did target for 30 sittings, and we ended up having 22 sittings. The reason being that this is dependent on the business and program of the House. Programming had 12 out of their 30 targeted meetings, which is not even half of the target. And when we try to link that with the current APP, the legislature is targeting for 22 sittings. One is curious as to why are we now under targeting? Why still target the 31 and try to improve in achieving that? Are we having 22 targeted sittings for this current financial year because it is merely what we were able to afford in the previous year now? And we are also targeting for 15 programming meetings, which is just 2 above the meeting that we were able to achieve last year. My questions are more of comments, questions, and proposals. Chairperson, when you look at the targets of the sittings and programming, or more especially the sitting one, the 30 and 22, that is dependable on the business and program of the House. The House has a lot of huge responsibility, especially in playing oversight and holding the executive accountable. I do not, as a committee member, believe that we really had less of businesses that could have taken us to the 30 targeted sittings. Obviously, when they drew the APP in the previous year for 30, they had the reasons in why they reached 30. I mean, when you go to chapter 25 of our House rules in the legislature, especially on rule 189, there's a provision for oral questions. And when we look at the National Assembly, there are sittings, Honorable Chairperson, which are dedicated for oral questions. You would see the president or the deputy president going there to answer these questions. And when you look at Rule 191, it says allocated times for these oral questions is 60 minutes. Chairperson, if the legislature or if we as a committee are serious in achieving targets such as the 30 sittings, if we really introduce what is in the rules of the legislature, we could have achieved the 30 if we really created sittings whereby oral questions were answered. I would also like to know as to, if we have this in the rules, why has the legislature or the institution or the office of the speaker not introduced the section for oral questions? It's not only happening in the National Assembly, Gauteng provincial legislature is doing it. And I think with other legislatures, the secretary can also engage with them how they are doing it. Because really, if we are going to go to the sittings and only debate reports of quarterly reports and oversights, at the end of the day, we are going to go from targeting for 30 sittings. Now we are targeting 22. In the next financial year, we will be targeting 15. However, if we utilize all our responsibilities as stated in the rules book, such as the oral question sittings, we will be able to achieve to 30 sittings. Also, Chairperson, in terms of, like I said, proposal, comments, and questions, what I'm about to say, the issue on oversight, Chairperson. Last year we had oversight. I sit on the Sports, Arts and Culture Oversight Committee. We were about 3 to 4 members attending that oversights of libraries, simply because members were sitting for their exams, preparing for their exams. And I'm not a pessimist, but having seen through the 5th legislature, we have planned oversights for this year. Unfortunately, we are in an election year. We are bound to have poor oversight visits because it is an election year. My proposal, it might not be for this year, but the secretary alongside those who plan, can they perhaps look at how other legislatures are conducting their oversight visits to ensure that they have a really great number of attendance of members? You look at the Gauteng legislature, whereby they conduct their oversight visits in January and February before SOPA. That way, you do not have oversight in the middle of the year where maybe it's an election year, people are campaigning, or maybe in October, November, whereby members cannot attend fully because they have exams. If they can just look into some of that. I see that internal arrangements has targeted for 4 internal arrangement meeting. Chairperson, we are members. I think we know issues that members sometimes do share in the WhatsApp group, their frustrations into the maintenance of the parliamentary village and other stuff. I honestly do not think that for internal arrangement meeting is proper enough to engage issues of members that are facing. That is just my comment. Out of curiosity, Chairperson, on the member safety and security, does it not include the safety of members within the parliamentary village? This is an issue that has been raised in the Public Works Committee internal arrangements. However, I would like to take an opportunity to also raise it here, seeing that it is a sub-program and the secretary is here. The safety of members here at the parliamentary village, it is really of a great concern. I have noted that we have an office or an area built for subs and all that. But in the absence of us not meeting what is wanted to approve us as a national key point when subs does their evaluation, can it not in the meantime we have a vehicle patrolling within the parliamentary village or next to the parliamentary village, because we've had incidents before in the 5th legislature, and I would really hate for us to come and regret as an institution if something bad happens in terms of the safety of members. The CFO, I'm not sure if I heard and understood her well. However, she mentioned the budget, that if we were to go back to physical work or normal activities of the legislature, we would have a shortfall in terms of the budget. So I guess that is why we are still on hybrid and other activities cut down. However, out of curiosity, with what she had said, looking into budget, if we were to try to balance for now to scale down on normal legislature activities and perhaps go back to full activities of the legislature later in the financial year. When will that be able to happen? Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pala. Can I put something in this committee as a question to the legislature also? Honorable members and our legislature, I'm going to have 2 to 3 questions. Number 1 is on allocation for party funding. We heard that the allocation for party funding is now the responsibility of the IEC. Then there is 44 million, which will be in the hands of the IEC for political party funding. So we would like to hear from the legislature as to how is the process of the party funding being unfolded. Then number 2, there is a 77.9 billion which was meant for the non-profit institutions. Then can the legislature brief this committee on how will this money be utilized and which non-profit institutions will be funded? Then the other one, honorable members, given the number of sectoral parliaments planned for this year, for this financial year, it should be noted that we are all observing COVID regulations, effective sectoral outreach or sectoral parliaments. How the legislature is going to do, or how can the legislature brief the committee on the plans in place towards the provision of sectoral parliaments? I thank you, honorable members. Honorable Kekana. Honorable Kekana.
Oh, thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. I think the honorable members have covered me on a number of things, but suffice to indicate that let me also join those who came before me by commenting the legislature for having obtained the clean audit. And as my comment, I would like to say that they must keep the bar high and also to take into considerations the minor issues as raised by the Auditor General, to say they must then have the best practice to maintain the clean audit so that in future they might not find themselves be regressing. They mustn't relax, like the issue of the proper review of the annual financial statement and the performance report before the submission to the external auditors, and also the quality of the AFS, their SCMs, and also the IT, which seems to be changing now and then as the developments are unfolding. And also the issue of the implementation of the internal auditors' findings, their internal audit committee, and the risk management resolutions. So in short, I want to comment the legislature also for really obtaining the clean audit. And then one other issue is on the issue of on your 2021-22 financial year annual performance plan, taking into consideration that there is no budget allocated for the institutions of higher learning and the TVETs. How will the bursaries and training of the employees going to be incurred? And also same on the same APP for the financial year 2020-21. You have also made mention of the issue of procuring of 5 vehicles, contrary to the non-allocation of budget. So we just want to know how is this going to be ferried. And also on the issue of, maybe if you may just be briefed on the issue of the payment of the legitimate services within 30 days, whether are you complying? And the issue of your organizational structure, which is to be reviewed. We would also like to check on the issue of your employment equity. And last thing, I want to check on the issue of the handing over of the renovation of Block 3 by the Department of Public Works. I want to check with the Office of the Legislature whether are you satisfied with the handover in terms of the quality of the work done, the value for money, whether the service providers have met the requirement in terms of the specifications. In short, I just want to check, are you happy with the quality of work as handed over by the Public Works, so that at the end of the day, we might not be found wanting in terms of the leaked roofing and the like. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Kekana. Do we have other comments or questions? Honorable members?
I think we are fine for now, Chair.
Oh, you are fine, honorable members. Okay. Thank you so much, honorable members, for raising some questions with the legislature. I also want to applaud the legislature for attending a clean audit. And thank you so much. That is a group work, a teamwork. Keep it up, our committed officials. We are proud of you as the portfolio committee. We will now request our accounting officer, Mr. Mutwa, to respond. But before Mr. Mutwa, as the accounting officer and the Oversight Mechanism Portfolio Committee, we agreed that each and every meeting, each and every portfolio committee report must come along with the report on the implementation of the committee resolutions. 12:30. I'm going to feel like about 12.
Okay.
You're sorry?
Okay.
We agreed that the standing rule is that the implementation of the committee resolutions
Chair, you're muted. Chair, you're muted.
My apology, honorable members. I was indicating this to our accounting officer, Mr. Mutwa, saying that our agreement as the portfolio committee together with the legislature is that the standing agenda of the portfolio committee meetings must include the implementation of the committee resolution must be the standing agenda on each and every portfolio committee, we must know which resolutions have been implemented and which are not implemented, and the reason why are they not implemented. So it seems as if they didn't prepare the implementation of the committee resolutions. But I think you will bring them in the next portfolio committee meeting. Can you please now respond to the questions from the honorable members, our accounting officer, Ntatemoto? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, for the issues raised. Some of them advices for us to improve on various areas, and others coming in as questions. And also we would like to really appreciate the comment made by the honorable members regarding the clean audit report that we got. And I would like to also agree with Honorable Munama that the bigger challenge now is to ensure that we do not regress, which is a bit of a challenge, of course. We are quite aware of that. Hence, in terms of the other questions raised by Ntate Munama, is what are we doing with the issues raised by the Office of the Auditor General regarding all other issues, and including the issues raised by flagged by the internal audit. We have developed, actually this is an annual thing, we develop an action plan based on all the issues raised by the AG, and we monitor it throughout the year to ensure that we eliminate those issues that are raised as problematic by the Office of the Auditor General. The other question that was raised by Honorable Munama is with regard to the filling of positions. Yes, indeed, Honorable Munama, I would regard that MTEF target as the wish list of some kind. This is a target. This is what we want to do. However, sometimes budget realities, sometimes they dictate otherwise, but this is where we want to go. I will cite an example. At the moment, we do not have a committee supported adequately in terms of the SOM model. We're supposed to have each committee having its own legal advisor. But at the moment, we have about 2 legal advisors trying to spread across various portfolio and standing committees, which is very difficult for us. We acknowledge the challenges. However, the other important thing for us is to ensure that our committees are able to function optimally. At least we now have one researcher per committee. And in the past, we used to have problems with that as well, because we used to have one researcher having about 2-3 committees. Even with committee coordinators, we do not have enough as yet. So that is our, hence I'm saying our wish list. This is where we want to be. And then we are engaging Treasury from time to time regarding. Actually, 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with Treasury, myself, the CFO, the Deputy Speaker, because the Speaker is not yet available, together with meeting the MEC and the accounting officer to discuss the budget of the legislature, including the cuts that we've experienced. I've noted the point raised by Ntate Munyama regarding the tools of trade. We will meet with our IT people to ensure that all issues are addressed accordingly there. But let me say that I think starting from the beginning of this financial year, the policy no longer allowed members to actually ask to take contracts on behalf of members as per the resolution of the Internal Arrangements Committee. However, that position has been reviewed, informed by the request by members themselves that some are unable to get contracts on their own, so the legislature should then continue. That has been changed. Now we are taking contracts on behalf of members as well. But with regard to the provision of the items, we will engage our IT and see what is possible there. And I agree with you, Ntate Munyama. This is this is what we need to we need to support members fully in terms of having this equipment, particularly in times like this. The difficult question that Mama and other members have raised is with regard to the party funding. That is, what are we going to do with the 44 million that versus the IEC arrangement? Let me state that with the implementation of the Political Party Funding Act, the current one, it has outlawed all provincial party funding acts, including policies. However, I must say we are having engagements as legislatures to see what can be done. How can parties represented in the legislatures be assisted? And we are also planning to have, we've already secured a meeting actually with the IEC, the provincial chapter, because we have learned that in other provinces they have ways of assisting parties represented in the legislature in some way. So we are going to have a meeting with our IEC provincial chapter to engage on that. But currently, we cannot pay any money through political party funding. We've had engagements with Treasury to say, for now, we may not be able to then dispatch this 44 million to parties because of the current realities. Yes, with regard to, we're also having engagements with Ntate Masihela regarding the improvements that has been recorded in research services, and I'm already seeing some actions that he has started to put in place to ensure that committees are supported adequately with regard to research services. However, we still also engage and see what needs to be done further to ensure that members are supported adequately, because research services is very, very much key in ensuring that members are able to do their work accordingly. Honorable Pala asked about the issue of us not meeting targets, particularly in house sittings, the performance indicator that talks to house sittings and the programming committee meetings. On a lighter note, and I'm saying on a lighter note, actually, Honorable Pala knows better in terms of what happens there. I'm saying this because in the programming committee, sometimes we would sit and adopt the documents that were supposed to be processed in other meetings, and then by so doing, we then cancel all those meetings that were programmed. So that affects the target in a way. For example, if we are going to have 2 sittings next week, in the programming committee of this week, say Tuesday or so, we may sit and adopt all order papers of those coming sittings. That's how it happens, particularly in relation to programming committee meetings. And with regard to sittings, and we've had difficulties discussing this with Treasury at some point, to say in the legislature, it is almost impossible to target accurately on all activities. For example, the one that we're talking about, the sittings, you target to have 30 sittings, but during the course of the year, there are a lot of activities, some of them political, some of them that have to do with engagements elsewhere in Parliament or National Council of Provinces, which necessitate that we call off our sittings. It happens many times. So it's almost, we raised it with Treasury to say, when we were discussing this planning tool, to say sometimes it is difficult for us as the legislature to target accurately on all activities informed by those realities that I've just alluded to. The sitting to deal with oral questions, we will look at that. Thanks for raising that point, Honorable Member. We will look at that and see what is possible, whether we can't include those as part of the items in the sittings that we normally have. But we will look at various options on how to deal with questions for oral reply. I think it's an important point because it's provided for in terms of the standing rules and orders of the House. Also, we look at the issue here, how do other legislatures ensure attendance to site visit? But also, Honorable Chairperson, I must say this, that sometimes it's difficult for us as the administration, particularly to deal with this one, because it does not only happen when there are other activities or when people are writing exams. It does happen. There are a number of sessions, the administration will tell, there are a number of sessions where you have the public hearing being addressed by one or two members. In the past, we were even forced to have staff addressing members of the public, and it's not correct. It can't be, it's actually not correct. It can't, members of staff can address the public. It's only individuals who must do that. But also, I think the WIPARI might have to also look at this to ensure that members do attend some of these important activities of the legislature. However, we take the point to check other legislatures, maybe in terms of their programming, there's something that they do different that might help improve the situation for us. Internal arrangements meeting are not enough. We will look at that. However, there are engagements that do take place between the Office of the Deputy Speaker as the head of the Internal Arrangements Committee and Public Works from time to time. This formal meetings, standing meetings that we're talking about, these 4 meetings. And from time to time, you would have special meetings to focus on specific issues. Those are always arranged, so it's not a problem to have such meetings outside the targeted meetings. It does happen sometimes. The safety and security of members of the legislature. It is true, Honorable Pala. In the past, we've had some unfortunate incidents happening at the parliamentary village. Hence, we insisted to Public Works that they must ensure that all equipment that subs require for them to be able to take over the parliamentary village are done. In the last meeting, we were promised that they will fast-track the process, and then they will ensure that soon there is a meeting between us, subs, and them, so that we then see whether subs is satisfied with what they've put in place or not. But for now, the parliamentary village is guarded by the security from Public Works, which is not in terms of the law, which is the law requires that the parliamentary village be guarded by the subs, and subs has agreed, but said we can't come in when there is still this and that lacking at the parliamentary village. So we are still waiting for that meeting to be arranged by Public Works for us and subs to meet and then hear whether subs is ready now to go in. The Honorable Lekhanyane also raised the issue of the party funding. I think I've tried to say something around that. We do have 44 million, but this 44 million is not necessarily going to be transferred to IEC. It is in the allocation of the legislature. It's the legislature that does distribute that, but in the current form, we can't distribute because it will be illegal because of all that is enacted by Parliament. The budget issues, I think, issues that are budget related, I think the CFO will largely speak to that. Sectoral parliament. Currently, Honorable Chairperson, we are only limited to virtual sessions, sectoral parliaments, because the programming committee had met, I think, in the past few weeks and reflected on whether it is time to go physical. And the decision was that it is still too early because they still talk about the possibility of a third wave. So we must wait and see what happens before we can, then the committee will at a later stage then assess and take a decision as to whether we should go fully physical or not. But for now, we are limited to virtual sessions. I must say that I think last week I received a request to have a physical session of the sectoral parliaments, which I did not recommend, and it was eventually turned down by the Deputy Speaker, informed largely by that decision of the Programming Committee, because the Programming Committee is a structure where all parties are represented. Yes. The implementation of the internal audit reports. It is true, Honorable Kekana, it is very important for us, particularly in our attempt to maintain the clean audit status. It is very important for us to ensure that we implement those reports. At the moment we do, and we report to the audit committee periodically in terms of how we're doing in as far as the implementation of those reports are concerned. And then the planning to buy cars. Why do we buy cars when we having challenges with the budget? Here, I think we have a big challenge here, because if we don't buy, then the big chunk of the budget goes to maintenance, because you would have your aging fleet. And it also not safe for members and officials to travel on using the fleet that has gone beyond the kilometers that are required. So that is why we are bound to ensure that we, from time to time, buy a few cars and then auction others that are old, so that we also take care of the safety of members and officials of the legislature. So it is critical for us, even though we have challenges regarding the budget, we have this important thing of ensuring that members are safe and they travel with transport that is safe. Are we complying with 30 days? We believe we are, because this has not been flagged by the AG, but we believe we are. And then even in terms of our internal audit reports, I think it's showing that the legislature is doing fairly well in terms of paying service providers within 30 days. I think the CFO might add there if she has something to add. The handing over of the renovated administration block by Public Works. Yeah, Public Works has reported that they are done with the renovations. We have not yet occupied the building because the network cables, they argued that that is part that the legislature need to do, and we take that, because basically it would be the network points for IT and stuff, but those are still not yet there. We're supposed to have done that towards the end of last year, but due to issue of funds, we could not do it. But we're planning to do it in this financial year so that we're able to occupy that building accordingly. Implementation of committee resolutions as a standing item. Chair, we agree, and it's just regrettable that this skipped our minds, that it should be a part of all the reports. Whenever we have meetings, we should be able to have a report that indicates how we are doing in relation to the resolutions of the committee. And this is also applauded. Maybe other committees could copy from this one, because it will also go a long way towards ensuring that the resolutions of the House are also implemented accordingly. But because basically these are not resolutions of the committee, but resolutions of the House, because the House has already adopted them. So yeah, thank you so much. Unless I've left something out, colleagues can also fill in those gaps, and the CFO will come in on the finance part. Unless I have not responded to some of the questions, I think honourable members will indicate, so that we can then go back to them. Thank you so much, Honourable Chairperson. Maybe the CFO will then touch on the ones that relate to the budget specifically.
Thank you very much, our accounting officer. Let me give our CFO an opportunity to chip in on some of the things related to his work, or related to her work.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think the Secretary has answered all questions. I'm just going to clarify the question that you were asking, Chairperson, on the 77.9 million on transfer payments to households, to non-profit organizations. The non-profit organizations that are listed, that item is called non-profit organizations, but that amount is the amount that we usually transfer to political parties, all 4 political parties that we have in the legislature. That amount includes the amounts for political party transfers, the constituency allowances, and it also includes the administration fees, the salaries and related costs of political party support staff, as well as the traveling and subsistence amounts for members within those political parties. And then it's not 77. 77 is for the previous year. For the current year, is 125 million that is in the next column. I just wanted to clarify that. And then I also wanted to comment on the issue of budget allocated for bursaries. We have engaged as managers on issues items where we can look at for cost cutting, but we have not yet concluded on cutting the training budget. We are not cutting the bursaries altogether this year, but we were just highlighting that whenever the budget goes cut or goes lower, all other items will go lower also. So even that item will go lower than the past financial years, but it will for now stay until we have come up with way forward on our cost-cutting initiatives that we are engaging as management. I think all other questions the Secretary has answered. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Team Legislature. Do we have other comments or questions? Honorable Phala.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. We do welcome the replies. Just 3 things, maybe to clarify on the oral question issue. It is not necessarily to include them in our current sittings, but rather to plan for sittings oral questioning, like we've seen in examples that I've stated, not necessarily to include them during sittings, but just to have dedicated sittings that deals with oral questioning. And that way we will not be looking at time and keeping members in one area for a longer time. The second one, I share the same frustration with the Secretary, hence I raised the issue of oversight and attendance. The suggestion was that we maybe look at them for January and February. And if the same does not, if the same continues of members not attending fully, so then the issue can be taken to WIPARI as stated. I mean, we are here as a committee to assist the legislature in ensuring that they do deliver on its mandate. When we take the issue to WIPARI, we will then be able to say the secretary or the legislature has been planning for mid-year and end of year members complaining on exams and this and that. It was taken at the beginning of the year and the same is still proceeding. Then WIPARI can be able to talk to their own members or within their own political party. But it was rather a suggestion because I share the frustrations with him. Let us try in changing this and see if the January, February does not assist. If it gives us the same poor attendance, then WIPARI or political leaders of opposition parties and the one in government, they must then do something about it. And lastly, Chair, I highly welcome the response on the security of members within the parliamentary village, that they will be having meetings with SAPs that will be organized by Public Works. Just a suggestion through you, Chairperson, through the committees, that the Secretary provides this committee with timeframes of these meetings that will be taking place. Perhaps a commitment of dates for Public Works that the Secretary can communicate with us, so that as a committee next time when we meet, we are able to play oversight and monitor to say, has the meeting happened in March or April? Because with the answer that we've been given, We know that meetings are going to be there, but we don't know as to when. So that in the next meeting, we are able to say through the time frame that you were given that Public Works will organize meetings with you and subs, what has transpired so far, so that as a committee, when we close this meeting, we have a clear understanding of time frames of these meetings. Thanks, Chairperson, and back to the responders to the questions previously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kala. Is there any comment from our honorable members? Anything from Legislature? None? Mr. Muto?
Yeah, no, thanks, Honorable Chairperson. Let me say, because this meeting is going to be coordinated by Public Works, let me engage the HOD so that he can come up with timeframes that we can forward to the committee. I think, what is this? Let me say by next week, we should be having those timeframes from Public Works, and because it will involve Public Works and SAP, so the availability of those offices is very key. So I'll communicate with the HOD of Public Works.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muto. Honorable members, is there anything? In the absence of none, we will now move to our next item. Before we can move to item number 6, which is an announcement. Honorable members, our team legislature, led by Tate Motwa, Office of the Auditor General, the researchers, led by Tate Masehela, the committees led by Me Soloma Sobe, our coordinator Tate Ghana, all our committed officials and all support staff from different sectors. Allow me to pass my word of gratitude to you. You made it for today's meeting. We thank you so much for your fruitful deliberations and contributions. Secondly, honorable members, on behalf of the Oversight Mechanism Portfolio Committee, let me take this opportunity to welcome. This is an official welcome to Dr. Nyatela, as she's going to be our new researcher starting from today. You are more welcome, Dr. Nyatela. And we also thank Mrs. Masemola for serving us, the Portfolio Committee of Oversight Mechanism, with dedication. We thank you so much. Kaspedirere, Mosadire Ashumile Walewa, Diro Atele Mo Yango Sevarona, Reago Levora, Carorialo Ratale Levora Kamuka. Let me take this opportunity to request our coordinator, Tate Ghana, to give us an announcement or announcements, if any. Tate Ghana.
Thank you, Chair. From the side of the committee coordinator, we don't have an announcement, Chair, and honorable members of the committee. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you very much, Tate Ghana. Honorable members, there is no announcement. Se se ra gore re ra bašomedi ba rena ka moka re ntle le lena re ka šitwa a re swarišaneng gore re tsweleng pele go achieve our clean audit. Ka gore yalo, this meeting, honorable members, is officially adjourned. We thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you
very
very
much.
much, Coordinator.